tragically short life and times of Buddy Holly are explored in a musical biopic that outlines the legendary musician's skyrocket to fame, his personal life including his courtship and marriage, and his struggle for artistic integrity. Gary Busey plays the role of Buddy Holly in a role that put him on the map, made him a star, and earned him an Oscar nomination. In the Buddy Holly story, this is today's review, and it's probably on Netflix. Now, there is a great scene that closes this movie, showing Buddy Holly's what would be his last concert, and you see Gary Busey up there on the stage belting out, all the tunes from Buddy Holly. Not so much like a real-time concert, but almost like his greatest hits, basically. And it is just this electric scene. It's amazing, so full of energy. You see Gary Busey up there giving it all. It's like he's possessed by Buddy Holly. It's this great rock and roll scene that's truly incredible. It feels almost like a concert film. It really kind of grasps you, and you see him there on stage doing this Buddy Holly performance, sweating profusely, and you feel like he really kind of gets it, and that's really amazing. And we see the concert close. He speaks to the microphone. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next year. Then the freeze frame. We are informed via title card that night Buddy Holly's plane crashed and he died, and the rest is rock and roll. So it's a very jarring kind of scene because, it just kind of cuts like that, kind of stops short, but it feels much like Buddy Holly's life as a whole. So, it was this incredible thing that just kind of, like a snap of the finger, it just was cut short, which is very tragic. And the movie doesn't, display kind of poor taste by giving us the gory details of the actual plane crash or anything like that. So there's no scene where he's like, oh, I'm getting on the plane, and then the turbulence, and then the ultimate crash. We don't see a scene cutting back to his grieving wife or anything like that. So I think it has enough good taste to spare us of those details, because that's not really what the movie's about, though it does, show his personal life and things like that. And it leaves things hanging, like in the context of like being an actual story. There are things that are just, left unresolved, which it kind of, resonates a little bit after the movie, where you kind of think about it. When he has his wife at home, she's pregnant with a child, his former bandmates who want to reconcile and surprise him by meeting up with him. We know that's not going to. We're not going to see the rest of what happens there, because his life and career has ended in a very tragic way. So it doesn't dwell on those kind of things, but we definitely feel it, and we feel kind of the loss of this great musician. And a great musician he was. Definitely up there with, like, in the late 50s of Elvis Presley, of Bill Haley. Just this incredible figure in rock and roll. And it has, this is such a great musical biopic that it has become kind of like the exact map work of one of them, like showing the early days, the career, the fame, the things like that. And you look at, like, kind of the opening scene where Lubbock, Texas is where he originated, getting kind of gigs on the radio, and then, saying, screw it, let's play some rock and roll instead of, like, country kind of innocent songs, where all the kids on the roller rink are going nuts, and, like, the parents are, like, covering their ears and stuff like that, but not in too over-the-top kind of way. But it is, like, incredible to think that really back in those times, people thought, like, rock and roll was the devil's music or things like that. It does kind of touch on that a little bit, but not in too over the top way. Like, we see him at church, and we see the pastor kind of make, like, a very subtle dig at him, basically, and kind of embarrass him and things like that. So there's no, like, over the top preacher characters like, oh, you can't play that, that's the devil's music. And the same with kind of the racial issues of the film, because that was kind of the idea of the time. That was kind of the belief that, black music is this, what do they call, bebop music, where white people aren't doing that. And there's even a scene where a concert promoter hears Buddy Holly on one of his tracks, and he's like, oh, come play the Apollo. Meanwhile, the Apollo is black entertainment only, and plays the Apollo, and he wins the crowd over, and it's an amazing scene. So kind of like seeing that mindset of the time, both with, like, rock and roll being this horrible thing, and with, there are themes of racial unity in the movie, like the the band goes on tour with Sam Cooke, and there's great stuff, and a good love story as well between Buddy Holly and his wife, and kind of the other aspects to it where the Crickets, his band, they're kind of almost like getting jealous of him and things like that. Meanwhile, he's not so much like hugely on fame. He just wants to tell all this music. He has something in his head that he just wants to get out there, get on the radio and things like that. So he becomes kind of obsessed, and that would probably be his only fault, where this isn't a musical biopic where it shows like struggles with drugs and drinking and things like that. No, Buddy Holly wasn't really about that, so it's almost kind of a refreshing thing to see, because like every musical biopic is like, oh, he's dealing with drugs, like the Johnny Cash, the Ray, and things like that. Here's a character that just really wanted to focus on music, and was, unfortunately the career was snuffed out by a horrible tragedy. But what can you say? I do think Gary Busey is absolutely brilliant in the role, his best role. I mean, really, Gary Busey's career is a whole different kind of tragedy in a way, because like, not to get like on a huge tangent here, but he was in a motorcycle accident, and I think he cracked open his head, and it kind of messed with him, and he's kind of crazy now. Not that he hasn't had good roles after this. I mean, he kind of used that crazy quirkiness to his advantage in roles like Lethal Weapon or Under Siege, The Firm, things like that. So I think he's still a good actor, but I don't think he ever reached quite as high of a height as he did with the Buddy Holly story, which is an incredible performance, which I think will always be his best unless something else comes along. Maybe he should just, Here's kind of my thought. Like, you look at this movie, and it's like he's, I think, 31 years old when he made the movie. Meanwhile, Buddy Holly's supposed to be like 20 when the movie starts. So you see him at like home with his parents at the dinner table, and he looks like this grown man who's supposed to be basically almost a teenager, and it's kind of funny that way. But I think what they should do, they should remake the movie with Gary Busey as he is now. Like, just remake the entire movie, scene per scene, line per line, and have Gary Busey play Buddy Holly, the Gary Busey we know now. I think that would be incredible. If that can happen, I think that'd be the most hilarious thing ever. Someone start a Kickstarter for that. Get Gary Busey to star in a remake of the Buddy Holly story. Anyway, I think it's a great film. I think the music is excellent. And I think this is one of the best musical biopics that we've ever seen. It kind of laid a lot of groundwork for what we'd see in later musical biopics. It's from 1978, so kind of a trailblazing movie that I don't think quite gets enough credit that it should. But I caught it on DVD, but it is probably on Netflix, so I definitely suggest, if you can find it, whether Netflix, whether DVD, whether other kind of streaming, whatever, definitely check it out, because it is a great film filled with great music. And I rate the Buddy Holly story 4 stars out of 4. It's an absolute classic with great music, and Gary Busey gives an excellent performance as the legendary rock and roll god. So that's my review of the Buddy Holly story. I think it's one of the best, the top 5 biopics ever. I mean, really, it's pretty much not even close. So I love the movie. Definitely check it out. What is your favorite musical biopic? That's what I'm going to ask for the comment below. Let me know, what is your favorite musical biopicture film? Could be Walk the Line, Ray, Coal Miner's Daughter, I'm Still Here, or I'm Not There, or whatever it was. Let me know below. Until next time, be sure to give me a thumbs up, comment, rate, subscribe, all that good stuff. Visit dare237.com. And until next time, beep bop, bleep bop, beep bop, boom.